Steve Cooper said to be under pressure, of course, at Nottingham Forest, lost to Leeds United during the week. But Forest's statement said anything but. Said no one denies that our club's in a difficult position in the Premier League, but we wish to end the speculation and the false and disruptive reporting in the media to confirm that Steve Cooper remains our manager at Nottingham Forest. And alongside that statement was a picture of the owner, the smiling Evangelos Marinakis. In the last few minutes, Steve Cooper himself has reacted to that backing.
Well, I've constant dialogue with the owner, so I guess something coming out publicly, there was nothing in there that wasn't a surprise to me. I think the club were annoyed with some articles or somewhat that had been written at nights before games and on match days, and they felt like they wanted to put a bit of an end to that. Articles that didn't really bother me, if I'm being honest, because if they don't do this job, we're all prone to stuff like this, and none of us are immune to it, so that's absolutely fine. And for me, I always try and focus on what's important, and that's trying to play much better than what we did the other night, and win more games than what we've been winning.
So that was Steve Cooper speaking just a short time ago. Now, in this column by a fella called Simon Jordan in the Daily Mail, every manager sacked this season deserves it. Let's face it, they've all been bloody useless. I take it Steve Cooper rightly doesn't fall into that category, hence he fights another day.
He's not part of the conversation, is he? Because he's not been fired.
Right.
And I don't think he should have been at that stage in the season. Now, whether that's going to be the ultimately saving grace for Nottingham Forest to stay in the division is a different discussion. I think they are in real jeopardy. I think they're in free fall. And having seen them live a couple of times, they've not been particularly great. But I know that the crowd at the City Ground is a remarkably motivated crowd, and that will be the difference, I suspect, between them staying up and being relegated. But I think it will be nip and tuck for Nottingham Forest. But I do also think that there is a balance. I'm not a sentimental man. People might take that as being negative. I'm just a pragmatic person that's realistic about things. And I think, unfortunately, in this world, like in any other walk of life, it's not what you've done for me, it's what you do for me next. So I contradict myself by suggesting that Steve Cooper should have been kept in the job in October because ultimately he wasn't doing it at that particular time. But with a promoted side that's not been there for 23 years, you've got to let it breathe.
Yeah.
You've got to let it distill and decant itself. They had this butter mountain of players. Whoever bought them is irrelevant. He's got this butter mountain of players. He had to be able to pull together a side that was broken to pieces by loans and players that were no longer under contract with Nottingham Forest when they got promoted. So there needed to be this distilling and this decanting of his opportunity to be a Premier League manager. So I think it was right for the owner to come out at that time and dissuade the baying media that this was going to be the next management casualty in October or whenever it was last year. And right to support him, because it would have given him that extra little bit of lift if he needed it or didn't needed it. He's a pragmatic man, Cooper. He's a realist, and I'm pleased to hear him talk about the idea that no one's immune from things, because they shouldn't be. And I do think he should be in situ. I don't think there's anyone better for the Nottingham Forest job. I do think some of the signings that he inevitably would have made, I think Lingard was an appalling signing. And has proven to be so. And he will have to take some responsibility for that, because I imagine he was in that conversation. Because if you're going to bring a player in Nottingham Forest on £120,000, £130,000 a week when you've first been promoted, you'd expect the manager to be on board with something like that. Yeah. But notwithstanding that, I think Forest are better for Steve Cooper than they would be without him.
Okay. They kind of went against the grain, really, I think, in this image that I've got in my mind about Marinakis, who I thought would be a bit trigger-happy around this particular time.
Well, I don't know Marinakis' background to know whether it's against the grain or not. Well, I imagine, given the fact he's owned the club for a period of time, and obviously Martin O'Neill was a little bit irritated with him because he didn't get what he thought he should have got out of it, so we have a slightly skewed view from Martin on it. But the bottom line is the guy that got him to the Holy Grail, to the Promised Land, was Cooper.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said for giving somebody enough of a chance. That's why it was absolutely right to give him a chance in October.
There's Paul, the Tricky Tree, sends me a message. I've been a Nottingham Forest season ticket holder for 20 years. Only seen a handful of games in the Premier League prior to this season. Can I say, if Cooper was sacked, I wouldn't go again this season, because he's given us something that we haven't had in years. And you're right about that, Paul.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.